apple, pumpkin, pecan, all the delicious American classics. But have you ever wondered the history of the sweet dessert that we all wish followed every family meal? To learn more about pie, we will have to look way back. The earliest reference to a pie was a recipe for chicken pie, written on a tablet in Sumer, sometime before 2000 BC. Some of these ancient pies were enjoyed so much that they can be found painted on the walls in tombs, as seen with Pharaoh Ramses II, who ruled from 1304 BC to 1237 BC. These paintings weren't the only art inspired by pies. In the 5th century BC, there were mentions of pie-like food in Aristophanes' plays. These pies, however, were not like the pies that we know of today. Most of them weren't designed to be desserts, but rather meals that were stuffed with a variety of meats. Some theorize we call them pies today after the bird magpie, which gathers many different materials for its nest. Also, the magpie was known to be stuffed into many of these meat pies back in the day. These earlier pies were commonly referred to as coffins, directly translated meaning basket. In medieval times, not many cooks could afford to construct an oven, and since pies were easy to cook over an open flame, many cooks made them. The covering of the meat in a pie was more of an attempt to prevent the meat from drying out during the baking, rather than actually the pie in the modern sense. It wasn't until the 15th century that pies started to resemble the ones we know of today. Instead of meat, they started to be filled with dried fruit, to make them more like desserts. The first ever recorded fruit pie was in the late 16th century, when Queen Elizabeth was served a cherry pie. At this time, over in the New World, the settlers were in the process of making pies an American meal staple. Settlers favored pies over bread because pies required less flour, and pies also had the ability to increase the longevity of many of the ingredients put inside them. The apple pie, made with American apples, became popular because apples were easy to dry and store in barrels over the winter. In the northern states, pumpkin pie was popular, as pumpkins were plentiful. As the settlers moved westward, they relied on pies for many of their meals, often being what they lived off of. Many of us might be longing for the days that pie was considered a full-course meal, rather than just having some for dessert. Well, those days ended in the late 1800s, when the nutrition of pies was called into question. The popularity of pies decreased as news came out how much energy it took to burn off a pie. Also, as food became easier to get and faster to cook, the pie changed from an easy once-a-week meal to, by comparison, a long process in the kitchen. Then, in the 1980s, a pie renaissance occurred, rediscovering old-fashioned pie recipes and exploring cross-cultural combinations. This is truly where the pies that we all know and love today came from. And that was the history of pie.